Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I want to share some things that I picked up. I think a really cool story from Bob Goff and his book, Catching Whimsy. It's something that I read while I was on vacation, and I thought, wow, this is a cool story. In John chapter 10, verse 27, Jesus says, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." So today is the story of Margaret McCullum. And she used to go to the subway every day in London. I guess that's not that unusual. A lot of people probably go to the subway every day in London. But here's why. Her husband, Oswald McCullum, he died in 2003, so that's 22 years ago. But his recorded voice has been coming over the loudspeakers for as long as anyone can remember to warn people, mind the gap. That's it. 3 words, mind the gap. That means be careful. There's a gap between the platform and where the trains are, and you don't want to fall down there because it would be really bad for you. And so she would come every day to hear his recorded voice say, mind the gap. I think that's pretty cool. She delighted in hearing her husband's voice. And I would imagine it wasn't a one-time thing. It's probably just being repeated and repeated. But after half a century, they decided, well, we're going to change this, because they probably went from something that was analog, to say the least, to something that was digital. And so they changed the voices that came over the speaker. And when this happened, Margaret, kind of old school, she asked for a cassette. Remember those? Yeah, she asked for a cassette of Oswald's announcement so she could keep listening, as it brought her great comfort. I don't know about you, but I identify with this in a natural way. I had voicemails on my phone. I remember my sister Karen, when it was my birthday, would call me, and I'd pick up and she'd say, hang up. And so I'd hang up, and then she would leave me a voicemail. And she had this way, it's like a cat singing, doing meows to sing happy birthday. It was just all, I'm not going to do it. And I kept that on my phone as long as I possibly could. So I totally get this. Well, when the company heard about this, I loved this, that they had the human kindness to do this, that they put his voice back on the speakers in one spot in London, the subway spot that was closest to Margaret's house, so she could go every day to hear it. Do you feel that way about God's voice? Now, I know some of you might be like, oh, preacher, God doesn't talk to me. I don't hear his voice. And maybe that's the case. Sometimes he does talk to us in a still small voice. I can look back over my life and he's communicated with me. But if you're like most people and like myself, you can hear his words right here. I mean, do you delight, like Margaret does, to hear her husband's voice, to hear the voice of Jesus, to hear the voice of the Lord through the Bible? Maybe you pick it up more through preaching when somebody else puts it into words, maybe even like this right now, as a small example of it. Or maybe it's through Christian worship music, or you listen to WMBI, whatever it might be. And for some people, it's, they might say, I struggle reading the Bible, or I'm not into this or that. Bob Goff says he hears God's voice walking through a forest. My wife Heidi is not a big hiker, and so I try to plan non-hiking national park trips, and I've got a couple more in mind for her, where you don't have to do hiking. But when we were in Alaska, we went up to Icy Point Strait and took this gondola up to the top, and it was kind of pricey, but it was a spectacular view. And then somebody said, let's hike down. Well, it was all downhill. And Heidi loved that forest, the sun coming through the trees, and she just kept making comments about it. And it did my heart so much good, because that's why I love national parks. All I'm saying, though, the point of this whole story is, where do you hear God speak? Go there. Seek it out. There's so many other voices to crowd out the voice of Jesus. Go to where you can hear the Lord's voice. God bless you.